When my sister told me I was no longer part of the business we built together, I didn't flinch. I stood there in the same bakery we'd painted together 3 years ago, the scent of freshly baked cinnamon rolls still hanging in the air like a cruel joke. Jake thinks it's time we rebrand, she said. You're too intense. We want something lighter, more approachable, less corporate, less you. The way she said less you was what really broke something in me. I didn't yell, I didn't fight, I didn't cry. I simply looked her in the eye and asked, "Is that what you want to, Chloe?" She looked away. That was enough. She didn't even have the courage to answer. Behind her, Jake leaned against the marble counter. I had chosen arms crossed, silent but smirking, like he had won. He probably thought I'd beg to stay. I didn't. I turned around, walked out of the bakery. I co-founded the business that bore my sweat and sleepless nights. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I just pulled out my phone, opened the legal services app, and began the process to dissolve the LLC. I had the authority. The filings were already in my name. The next morning, the bakery's business license would no longer exist. Their lease would be terminated. The insurance policies void. No one would know yet, not until the paperwork went through. But I knew, and I felt calm. Not angry, not heartbroken. Just clean. Like scrubbing away the last bit of grime someone else left behind. That was just the beginning. What came next wasn't about revenge. It was about reminding myself and everyone else who actually built the foundation they were now trying to erase me from. It was about showing Chloe what it meant to tear down the only person who ever stood by her. What happens when you cut out your backbone to please a man who wasn't even there when your world was falling apart? So yes, she cut me off to impress her boyfriend. But I shut the whole thing down, and she never saw it coming. My name is Sarah Blake. I'm 28 years old, and until last week, I was the co-founder and operational backbone of a small but growing bakery called Honey and Hearth. We started in a rented storefront downtown with peeling paint and a leaky roof. Now it's got over 20,000 Instagram followers, a waitlist for custom cakes stretching 3 months out, and more magazine features than I can count. I built every inch of it with my sister Chloe. But with is a generous word. Chloe was the face, the charm, the soft edges, and pastel colors. I was the engine, the one behind the ovens at 4 a.m., the one ordering supplies, negotiating leases, balancing the books. I was the one who built the systems, filed the LLC paperwork, structured our equity split, designed our profit margins. I never cared for the spotlight. What I cared about was the mission: create something from nothing, something sustainable, something ours. Chloe was only 20 when we started. I was 24, 2 years out of business school, working a full-time accounting job and baking on nights and weekends. We pooled our savings. I dipped into my emergency fund. She sold some old jewelry for Mom. When we signed the lease, she cried. I smiled, calculated how many cupcakes we'd have to sell per day to break even, and scheduled our first health inspection. That's who we were. I was the planner, the realist. She was the dreamer. After Mom died, I practically raised her. Dad had already moved on with another family by then. Chloe was still in high school, and I made sure she had groceries, school supplies, someone to text at midnight when she failed a test or had a panic attack. I didn't resent her for any of it. I wanted to protect her. I still do. But protection doesn't mean enabling, and love doesn't mean silence. People always assumed I was the older, more serious sister. I didn't correct them. I carried weight without broadcasting it. I never posted inspirational quotes on Instagram or shared how I'd grind mode selfies. I worked. I believed if we succeeded, that would speak for itself. But people don't see what they don't want to see. Chloe made herself the story. I let her. She was the pretty one, the marketable one. She had freckles and a soft laugh and a way of making strangers feel like best friends. Customers loved her. Investors noticed her. She got the credit. I got the invoices. I didn't mind. Until Jake showed up. He was all teeth and cologne, tech startup swagger, and generic advice. Scale fast, build community, leverage your narrative. It didn't take long for him to start whispering things to Chloe. Little shifts in tone. Your brand should reflect you, not operations. We should revamp the leadership image. Your sister's great, but she's not exactly on brand. I heard the comments. I ignored them. I figured Chloe would see through it. that she'd remember who helped her pay her tuition, who stayed up with her when she had pneumonia, who covered the bakery's rent during COVID. But maybe memory fades when validation from strangers starts pouring in. Maybe comfort feels like something to outgrow. I watched her lean toward his world one selfie at a time. More curated captions, less flour under her nails. I wasn't bitter, not then, just tired. And slowly she stopped asking me to weigh in. On vendors, on hiring, on partnerships. She said things like, Jake has experience with this and I think we're heading in a different direction. I knew what that meant. I just didn't think she'd say it out loud. But she did. You're not really part of the brand anymore, Sarah. Jake thinks. That was the moment. The moment I realized I'd become a ghost in my own creation, and that maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop being invisible and start being remembered. It didn't happen all at once. At first, it was subtle. Jake would sit in on meetings just to observe, Chloe said. He'd offer suggestions, positioning them as casual thoughts, nothing official. Then somehow he was redesigning our menus, claiming they needed a fresh aesthetic. He wasn't wrong, our design was dated, but the way he did it bypassed every process we'd built. No discussion, just execution. Chloe approved everything with a soft giggle and an affectionate eye roll, like he was just being helpful. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She was in love, I told myself. This was her first serious relationship since college. She'd come back to herself eventually, but she didn't. Jake's influence spread like ink and water, slow at first, then impossible to separate. He started handling our social media accounts. Our once humble tone turned glossy, curated, aspirational. Gone were the behind-the-scenes videos of Chloe decorating cakes in her pajamas, or me elbow-deep in sourdough starter. Now it was champagne shots, styled brunch tables, staged laughter with friends who didn't know what 4 a.m. prep felt like. He pitched influencer collaborations, some of which made no financial sense, but Chloe greenlit them anyway. It's about exposure, she said. Jake understands brand building. I asked her once if she even checked the cost-benefit analysis. She blinked at me like I'd asked in a foreign language. We can't run everything through spreadsheets, Sarah. Not everything is about margins. Maybe not everything, but the things that kept us afloat, the rent, the payroll, the inventory controls, they were about margins. And when one of those deals tanked, and we had to eat a $2,000 loss, she said it was just part of the learning curve. Jake said big vision requires bold risk. I said no, it requires responsible stewardship. He smiled like I was a teacher who'd been politely tolerated too long. From there, the exclusions became explicit. I stopped getting CC'd on email threads. Chloe met with vendors without me. When we had a tasting event for a potential investor, I wasn't even invited. I found out about it through a tagged Instagram story. My hands shook when I saw it, her standing next to Jake holding a miniature lemon tart we'd perfected together. The caption said, "Couldn't have done it without this guy." I didn't say anything that night. Instead, I printed the photo and pinned it to my corkboard at home. A quiet reminder. Chloe didn't notice, or maybe she didn't care, that the bakery's operational system still ran through me. The bank account required my approval for major withdrawals. The commercial lease was under my name. The health permits listed me as primary contact. I was still the backbone even if she no longer wanted to acknowledge it. Then came the conversation. We were closing up after a long Saturday. Flour dust lingered in the air, and the hum of the fridge filled the silence. I was wiping down the espresso machine when she cleared her throat. Jake thinks we should shift the business model, she began. I didn't look up. We're already profitable. Yeah, but that's not the point. We're playing too small. There's an opportunity to scale. Fast investors are interested, but they want a clear brand voice. What does that mean, Chloe? She hesitated. They think we need to streamline leadership. One face, one vision. I set the cloth down. You mean you? Without me. She winced. It's not personal. Of course it's personal. It's a business we built together. But it's grown beyond that now, she said, eyes flicking to the floor. Jake says if we want to take it to the next level, we need to modernize our image. Your approach, it feels too rigid. Investors don't vibe with it. Investors don't vibe with spreadsheets. It's not that. You're just intense. You overthink everything. Jake thinks I interrupted. That's becoming a theme. She took a breath as if summoning courage. We want to buy you out. That was it. The knife to the heart. Not even a pretense of partnership. Not a restructuring, not a vote. A buyout. A dismissal. I nodded slowly. And you? Do you want that? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. All right, I said, reaching for my bag. Email me the paperwork. Sarah, wait. No need. If this is about image, then I won't stand in your way. I walked out without looking back. But I already knew there would be no buyout. There would be no negotiation. I wasn't going to let them write me out of my own legacy. I wasn't going to fight in public or plead in private. I was going to do something neither of them expected. I was going to remind them who held the keys. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch fully clothed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, while memories played across my mind like reels of film. Every version of myself from the last 5 years stared back, tired, hopeful, determined. I remembered the first day we got the keys to the bakery. The floor was stained. The walls were mustard yellow. The plumbing was a disaster. But Chloe hugged me in the middle of the room barefoot on cold tile and said, "We're really doing this." And we did. For the first 6 months, we lived off instant noodles and leftover pastries. I worked my accounting job by day and baked at night. We couldn't afford employees, so I ran deliveries during my lunch breaks, sweating in business attire while balancing boxes of cupcakes. Chloe designed our logo with free Canva templates. I registered the LLC, opened a business bank account, and applied for our first permit, an industrial kitchen license that took weeks of paperwork and a bribe in the form of free eclair for the inspector. We made mistakes, big ones. We signed a lease too soon, ordered bulk ingredients we couldn't store, got a bad Yelp review from a blogger who showed up during a power outage and called us a chaotic mess with frosting. But we learned. I learned. I stayed up reading small business finance books, joined forums, took night classes on marketing. I spent hours calculating cost per unit, learning that shaving 3 cents off a packaging supplier could mean $200 a month in savings. I was obsessed. But in the way that builders are, every brick mattered. Chloe was the dreamer. She brainstormed seasonal flavors and drew whimsical chalkboard signs. Customers loved her. She made people feel like they were part of something cozy and special. I loved that about her. I still do. But dreams don't survive on good vibes alone. Someone had to be the realist. That was me. I filed the taxes, dealt with landlords, negotiated the terms when our fridge broke and we couldn't afford a new one. I pulled 2 all-nighters in a row during Valentine's rush one year. My hands blistered from piping icing roses. Chloe got pneumonia that winter, and I ran the shop solo for 2 weeks. She barely remembered it. I never mentioned it. That's what you do for family. You carry more than your share when the load gets heavy. I never kept a list. Until now. Now the list lived in my mind like an old ledger, each entry etched in exhaustion. $30,000 from my savings account to launch the business. $9,000 loan I took under my name when the supplier threatened to cut us off. $4,800 in repairs when a water pipe burst and Chloe was on vacation. Countless unpaid hours, skipped birthdays, canceled dates, missed weddings. When people asked if I was the owner, I said, "We both are." When investors asked who handled financials, I said, "We do it together." I shared everything. Credit, blame, risk. Now she wanted to delete me from the story, like I'd been a placeholder until Jake showed up with his hair gel and investor lingo. I sat up around 3 a.m. and pulled out the folders I hadn't touched in months. Every receipt, every contract, every signature with my name on it. It was all there. The paperwork that said I wasn't just involved, I was essential. The lease on the building under my name. The business license registered to me. The trademark for the bakery name filed by me. Chloe had always said she hated forms. "You're better at this stuff, Sarah," she'd laugh, pushing a stack toward me. I'd sign, she'd smile, and we'd move on. It wasn't malicious, it was just her way. And I never thought twice until now. Now I saw it all differently. These weren't just documents. They were power. And power misused becomes betrayal. But power understood becomes protection. I'd protected her all these years, but now I had to protect myself from her. I opened my laptop and began listing everything I was still legally responsible for. It was a long list. The next tab I opened was the state business portal. The login greeted me with, "Welcome back, Sarah Blake." From there, the next steps became obvious and surprisingly simple. The day after our conversation, Chloe texted me as if nothing had happened. A photo of a new pastry setup captioned, "Soft launch, starts Friday. Wish you were here." I didn't reply. That afternoon, she called. I stared at the screen until it went dark. I wasn't ignoring her to be petty. I just didn't know who she was anymore. That night, she showed up at my apartment. I opened the door slowly. She stood there in a blush trench coat and white ankle boots holding 2 lavender lattes like a peace offering. "I thought we could talk," she said, smiling like it was all a misunderstanding. I stepped aside. We sat in silence for a minute, the drinks growing cold between us. She looked around like she hadn't been in this space in months, which she hadn't. "I just wanted to say," she began, "I didn't mean to hurt you. Jake's just been pushing me to take things seriously. He thinks we can go national." "By cutting out the person who built it with you?" I asked. Her expression flickered. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Chloe?" She hesitated, then said it. "You're intense, Sarah. You overthink, you stress, you make people feel small." I stared at her. "Which people?" She looked away. "Investors, influencers. Jake, me." There it was, the truth laid bare. Not a misunderstanding, not a miscommunication, a decision. "I've been the backbone of that business for 5 years," I said. "And now I make you feel small. You make me feel like I'll never be enough," she whispered, "because you do everything so perfectly." I let that sink in. It wasn't about Jake, not really. It was about her needing to feel like the star. And me being the one holding the scaffolding together made her feel like she was standing in someone else's shadow. I softened for a moment. "Chloe, I never wanted to compete with you." "But you do," she said. "Even when you're silent, it feels like judgment." I stood. "If that's how you feel, I won't argue. But if you're cutting me out to make yourself feel taller, you should be prepared for the floor to shake." Her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" I handed her a folder. "It's a courtesy copy. I filed for dissolution of the LLC this morning." Her face went white. "You're bluffing." "I'm not," I said. "I'm the primary signer on every legal document. You let me be invisible for so long. You forgot I was the one holding the pen." She flipped through the papers with trembling hands. "You can't do this. We have orders. Investors. Then you shouldn't have told the owner to step away." I walked her to the door. "You cut me off, Chloe. I'm just closing the circle." She didn't say anything as she left, and for the first time in weeks, I felt still. I woke up the next morning to 37 unread messages. 24 were from Chloe. The rest were from vendors, our part-time manager, the delivery guy, and 2 from Jake. I didn't open any of them. I knew exactly what they said. The business shutdown process had already begun. The paperwork had been filed, and I'd followed up with our landlord to terminate the lease per the early exit clause I'd personally negotiated 2 years ago. I'd contacted the health department, notified our accountant, and revoked access to the bakery's inventory system. Legally, the entity known as Honey and Hearth would cease to exist in 6 to 8 business days. Emotionally, it had died the moment Chloe decided to cut me out. Around noon, I walked to the bakery. The door was unlocked, of course it was. Jake had always said locks were unwelcoming. Inside the kitchen was bustling, flour in the air, staff moving fast trays of cookies cooling on racks. Chloe was at the front counter posing for a photo with a pair of influencers she'd invited to soft launch our new brand. She hadn't even paused the rebrand. I walked behind the counter and into the back office, ignoring the startled looks from the staff. My presence now felt foreign in a space I had once memorized down to the drawer labels. I grabbed the office key, walked outside, and locked the front door from the outside. Then I put up a sign closed until further notice. Chloe ran out 15 seconds later, heels clacking, voice raised. "What the hell are you doing?" "Executing a legal order," I said. "Calm. The business no longer exists. You can't just shut it down," she shrieked. "Watch me." I handed her a printed email chain between me and our attorney. "You're welcome to start a new business. But Honey and Hearth is done. And you can't use the name. It's trademarked under my name." "You're destroying everything," she said, voice shaking. No, I'm ending something that stopped being what we built. You decided I wasn't welcome, so now you're not either. We have clients, orders, events. They'll get refunds, I said. And if they don't, they can call the number on the license. Oh, wait, that's mine. Jake appeared then. Arms crossed, smirk gone. You're acting emotional, he said. Unprofessional. I turned to him. You're not on any legal document. You're not a partner. You're not even a registered employee. You're just a voice in someone else's head. So I suggest you stay out of this. He stepped back. Chloe looked like she might cry, but I didn't flinch. Sarah, we can fix this, she said lower now, like she suddenly remembered who I was. It's already fixed, I replied. I took my name back. Then I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard her slam the glass door shut. I didn't look back. I went home, made tea, and waited. The internet exploded by evening. Popular bakery shuts down mysteriously, read one headline. Influencers posted stories asking what happened. Customers left confused comments. Chloe made a public statement blaming internal restructuring. Jake posted a black and white photo of the bakery's logo with a broken heart emoji. I said nothing. I didn't need to. The silence was louder than any explanation. 2 days later, the soft launch party was canceled. 4 sponsors pulled out. The property management company relisted the unit. Someone posted a video of Chloe crying in the bakery with boxes packed around her. People speculated. Some blamed me. Most didn't. They'd seen enough stories about founders being pushed out of their own companies. The narrative was clear. Chloe had made a bad bet, and I had called in my equity. By day 3, the whispers turned into conversations. Former collaborators began quietly removing Honey and Hearth from their portfolios. A few boutique cafes who used to repost Chloe's branding content unfollowed her Instagram. The investor Jake had bragged about in meetings posted a cryptic LinkedIn status about vetting leadership before funding a vision. I didn't gloat. Not publicly. I didn't share memes or drop sly comments. I just watched the slow unraveling from the quiet of my apartment, one mug of chamomile tea at a time. Chloe sent another long message around 11 p.m. that night. It started with, I didn't mean for things to go this far, and ended with, we can fix it if you just talk to me. I read it twice and put the phone down. This wasn't about talking. It was about finally being heard. The bakery's email inbox was full of questions. Event clients demanding clarity. One couple wrote, we picked Honey and Hearth because your story inspired us. Please tell us this isn't real. That one stung. Our story had been real until it became curated content for someone else's image. Jake tried calling me directly on day 4. I didn't pick up. Instead, I forwarded a cease and desist letter drafted by my attorney. It barred him from using any version of the Honey and Hearth name, logo, or brand for future ventures. 24 hours later, he posted an Instagram story about toxic gatekeeping in female-led businesses, then promptly deleted it when the comments flooded in. Didn't you just edge out the co-founder? Weren't you just the boyfriend? Why don't you start your own bakery, Jake? It wasn't just about the business anymore. People started digging. Old tweets resurfaced where Jake made offhanded jokes about real work being for suckers. One thread quoted an interview where he said, sometimes you have to clean house even if the mess is your own family. That line got screenshotted, shared, ripped apart. I hadn't lifted a finger. I didn't need to. The truth had momentum now. Chloe went quiet on socials. No posts, no stories, just silence. Meanwhile, past customers shared their experiences. Most were kind, but some told stories I hadn't even known. Sarah was always the one who answered our emails at 2 a.m. She helped us reschedule our wedding cake when we had to move our date due to a flood. I once came in crying, and Sarah gave me a free cookie and told me things would turn out okay. Reading them felt like discovering pieces of myself I hadn't realized people noticed. Not fame, just impact. Real quiet impact. And now, it had a voice. On day 5, a journalist from a local women's business magazine reached out. She wanted to run a feature when founders fight back the hidden labor behind every brand story. I declined the interview. I wasn't interested in being the symbol of anyone's battle. I just wanted my name back, my peace back. And that piece tasted better than any macaron we'd ever piped. I invited Chloe and Jake to dinner the following Sunday. Not at a restaurant, not in a conference room, just my apartment. Same table we'd shared takeout on during our bakery's opening week. Same space she hadn't set foot in for over a year. She hesitated when I called, but she came. Jake came too reluctantly. He walked in like he expected a trap. Chloe, meanwhile, looked worn out, her usual high-energy glow dulled by days of unanswered questions and pulled sponsorships. I had cooked real food, roasted vegetables, garlic chicken, warm sourdough, no delicate pastries or styled plates, just a meal. We ate mostly in silence. Jake poked at his food, eyeing me like I might flip the table. I let them stew. When the plates were cleared, I placed 2 folders on the table. "What's this?" Chloe asked, her voice small. "Receipts," I said. "And records." Jake rolled his eyes. "We already saw your petty paperwork tricks, Sarah. You made your point." I didn't respond. I turned to Chloe. "Do you remember our first month we made $1,103 total? Rent was $2,400. Do you know how we covered the gap?" She blinked. "You had savings. I had $3,000 in savings. I used $2,800 to pay rent, ingredients, and utilities. That left me with $200 for groceries for the rest of the month." She looked away. "I didn't know it was that bad." "You didn't want to know," I said, my voice calm. Every month after that, I covered shortfalls until we broke even. I deferred my student loans, gave up my health insurance, and canceled a planned trip to Vermont with Dee Helen. Also, we could keep baking. Jake leaned back. "So what? That's what founders do. Founders don't get pushed out of their own business," I replied, turning to him. "And they don't get erased by boyfriends who weren't there when the floors flooded and we used towels to save the dry storage." Chloe finally opened the folder in front of her. Inside was a printed timeline of expenses and contributions. Each line item backed by receipts, dates, signatures. It wasn't just money, it was time. 4 a.m. starts, 12-hour shifts, emergency vendor calls, bakery design sketches in my handwriting. Jake's name wasn't on a single document. Chloe flipped to the next page, a letterhead marked with my attorney's logo. "This is..." She trailed off. "A proposal," I said, "to release you from all ties to the Honey and Hearth entity. In exchange, you forfeit any claim to the brand, the name, the IP, and any future ventures using its assets." "That's insane," Jake barked. "You're not even keeping the business alive." "It's my name," I said. "My work, my registration. I don't owe it to be passed along like a family recipe. If she wants to start over, she can. But not with my legacy." Chloe stared at the documents like they might catch fire. "I didn't mean to steal anything." "But you did," I said softly. "You stole credit, direction, voice. You let him rewrite our story while I was still in the room." She started to cry then. Not dramatic sobs, just slow tears sliding down her cheeks. "I thought if I could just take the business further, maybe you'd finally be proud of me." I blinked. "I was always proud of you. But this isn't about ambition, it's about erasure. You wanted the whole stage, Chloe, and I stepped off it. But you also wanted to take my name off the walls on your way out." Jake stood up. "We're not signing anything?" "Then we're done here," I said, pushing my chair back. "I've taken the legal steps already. This is just a kindness." Chloe didn't follow him. She stayed seated, staring at the papers. "Can I have time to think?" "You have until Friday," I said. "After that, the cease and desist becomes a lawsuit." "I never wanted this," she whispered. "Neither did I," I replied. "But wanting and doing are 2 different things. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." She nodded slowly, eyes on the folder like she finally understood what it meant to build something and what it cost to lose it. The following week was a quiet storm. Chloe didn't sign the documents. Friday came and went. My lawyer filed the suit Monday morning. The press got wind of it by Tuesday. What started as a local curiosity, a bakery shuttering, mysteriously turned into a headline, "Co-Founders Clash and Bitter Business Breakup." The article quoted anonymous sources, described Chloe as a young creative swayed by outside influence, and me as the operational mastermind erased from her own company. I didn't ask for the spotlight, but it found me. Customers chimed in with stories. Employees past and present spoke to reporters. A former intern shared a thread about how I taught her to write invoices. A vendor posted screenshots showing I was always the one handling orders. Chloe tried to control the narrative. She posted a video just her in a sunlit kitchen, no makeup, tearful. She said she made some naive decisions and didn't understand the weight of legal infrastructure. The video went viral, but not in the way she hoped. Comments flooded in. Didn't understand you were an adult running a business. Sounds like you pushed your sister out and now want sympathy. Accountability is not a branding exercise. Meanwhile, Jake disappeared. He locked down his profiles. The Future of Food Innovation project he had teased on LinkedIn quietly vanished. One of his old colleagues wrote a blog post titled, "When Ego Tanks Potential." It included several screenshots from emails where Jake claimed he was cleaning up founder drama. By Friday, the damage was undeniable. Chloe's influencer deals were paused. A local podcast canceled her interview. One of our old investors posted a subtle dig: vision without integrity is just noise. She sent me a text. Just one line. "I'm sorry. I get it now." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She was finally alone in the echo chamber she'd created, the one where image mattered more than impact, where applause drowned out accountability, and the truth, quiet, steady, undeniable, had finally taken center stage. I walked past the bakery one last time that weekend. The windows were bare. The sign was gone. Just an empty space waiting for its next chapter. Like me, a space ready to be rebuilt on my own terms. Spring came slowly that year. The kind of spring that doesn't rush, that lets the chill linger just long enough to remind you what it took to get here. I spent more time on my porch than I had in years. No early morning alarms, no late night emails, just quiet and healing. Dee Helen came to visit. She brought lemon tea and stories about her garden, and she didn't ask about the lawsuit. She just sat with me, hands around her mug like silence was enough. And it was. Chloe eventually signed the papers. She didn't fight the suit. She released her claims. The brand, the name, the business, all legally mine, even if I had no intention of reviving it. I didn't need the bakery anymore. I just needed the dignity of closure. I sold the trademark rights a month later to a small cafe chain in Vermont that planned to use the name for their seasonal line. They paid more than I expected, enough for a small place upstate. I moved in June. A cottage with ivy along the walls, one bedroom, a porch that creaked, and a kitchen that begged for bread. I didn't open another bakery. Not officially. But I started baking again. Just for neighbors, friends, the farmer's market. No branding, no hashtags. Just warm sourdough, honest pricing, and handwritten labels. People came. Not for photos, not for trends. For bread, for stories, for community. And slowly I realized I hadn't lost my legacy. I'd simply reclaimed it. One evening, a woman at the market asked if I had a business card. I smiled and said no. She looked surprised. "But how will people find you?" I shrugged. "If they need me, they'll find me. Because real value doesn't require spotlights. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't need to prove itself every minute. It stands. Quiet. Steady. Sure. Like I had for 5 years. Like I would for the rest of my life." Chloe wrote me a letter in August. No theatrics, no defense, just 5 paragraphs of truth. She told me she understood now that what we built had been more than a brand, that she was sorry for forgetting what mattered, that Jake was gone, that she was starting over. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just clarity, just the chance someday to earn her way back into my life. I haven't written back yet, not because I'm angry, but because I'm whole. And forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnection. Sometimes it just means peace. And I have that now. I walk into my kitchen each morning with no tension in my chest. I open the windows. I mix flour, water, salt, and yeast. And I begin again. Not as a co-founder. Not as the backbone no one sees. Just as Sarah. Builder. Believer. Woman who shut down a business when it tried to shut her out. And who rose from the silence with her name intact. Her story hers. And her future exactly as bright as she chooses to make it.